Welcome to Eyes on Ice Investigates. Today, we've got a genuinely fascinating and honestly heavily shielded topic to unpack for you in this explainer. We're going to dive directly into the source material to uncover the hidden financial pipelines that quietly fund federal immigration enforcement. You know, we hear a ton of public rhetoric about immigration and border control, but the actual physical machinery of it, how it's paid for, and exactly who profits, well, that's rarely discussed. So our mission today is to pull back the curtain on this multi-billion-dollar shadow economy. We're going to rely purely on the facts in the documents to see exactly how this whole system operates. So let's start here. Think about this for a second. How does Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, expand its deportation infrastructure quietly, without public debate or competitive bids? It's a massive question. I mean, normally, when federal agencies want to build something or hire services, there is a highly regulated, publicly debated, and a highly competitive bidding process. But as the sources reveal, the federal deportation machine doesn't really run on public debate. We are going on an investigative journey right now behind a closed curtain that a lot of politicians simply do not want opened. So how do they actually pull this off? The answer lies in a very specific loophole known as the SBA 8th A ANC preference. Let's demystify this right out of the gates. Under Small Business Administration rules, there's a specific preference carved out for Alaskan Native corporations, or ANCs. This rule allows these entities to receive what are called sole source contracts. And sole source means exactly what it sounds like, literally zero competition, no rival bids whatsoever. But here's the crazy part. For these specific entities, there is no statutory dollar ceiling. Federal agencies can hand them contracts of any size, we're talking millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars, without ever opening the process to the public or to competitors. To put that into perspective, the sheer scale of what this loophole allows is staggering. 8%. According to the source material, in the year 2025 alone, Native entities captured more than 8% of all ICE contract dollars. That is a massive slice of a massive federal budget, all flowing through a channel that completely bypasses competitive bidding. So we're not just talking about a minor administrative shortcut here. This is a primary financial artery for federal enforcement. Okay, so who are the actual players capturing these contracts? Well, we're looking at subsidiaries of NANA, specifically through a company called Akima, which has historically been ICE's largest 8A recipient over extended periods. We also have Bering Straits Native Corporation, Otna, Bristol Bay, and Katmai. These corporations have taken hundreds of millions in Department of Homeland Security and ICE work over the past decade. And we should be really clear about the work they do. This isn't just symbolic administrative paperwork. They are running service processing centers. They are providing armed transportation, guard services, surveillance logistics, occupational health, and facility maintenance. They are literally building and running the physical infrastructure of detention and removal. Let's move into our next section, the legislative shield. We're going to look at exactly how Alaska's congressional delegation protects this pipeline. First up is Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska. The source documents reveal that Senator Sullivan has essentially treated this 8A ANC preference as a permanent entitlement. Get this, in 2019, he inserted legislative language that actually repealed a requirement for written justification on sole source awards above $20 million. Just think about that. He removed a pretty modest transparency check, making it even easier for agencies like ICE, DHS, CBP, and military contractors to push through these massive no-bid awards. And later, when the administration tried to do a line-by-line review of these contracts, Senator Sullivan defended the status quo, citing speed and efficiency. He and others even secured a formal Pentagon letter affirming that these contracts are insulated from broader contracting purges because of their political status. Next, we have Senator Lisa Murkowski. She famously called this entire system Economic Self-Determination in Action. In fact, that's the exact title she gave a 2026 oversight hearing she convened as chair of the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. The sources show how she uses her institutional power to categorically reject any descriptions of this structure as a breeding ground for fraud or pass-through arrangements. On top of that, she leverages her powerful role on the Appropriations Committee to signal that any language trying to restrict sole source awards to these entities would face severe delays on defense and DHS bills. So the practical effect of her actions, the continuous, uninterrupted protection of this financial channel. Rounding out the congressional delegation is Representative Nick Begich III. He functions as the House counterpart to the senators, and he works in absolute lockstep with them. For instance, when the Pentagon announced reviews of large 8A awards, Representative Begich immediately stated his office was working to protect the program's unique history. His role is absolutely vital to this operation because he ensures that robust resistance to audits and reforms exists in both chambers of Congress. Together, this delegation treats any serious examination of the pipeline as an existential threat to Alaska's federal revenue. Now, this brings us to a really stark contrast. The delegation aggressively pushes a political claim of economic self-determination, unique political status, and indigenous economic empowerment. It sounds incredibly noble, right? But the structural reality documented in the sources paints a totally different picture. The indigenous designation essentially acts as a legal wrapper. Much of the actual operational work is subcontracted out to non-native companies. The corporate executives and consultants, many of whom are actually based out of state in places like Virginia, are the ones capturing the bulk of the federal enforcement money. So structurally, it functions as a shadow economy for mass deportation, utilizing a rule that was originally meant for small, disadvantaged businesses. This creates a massive contradiction. The rhetoric of indigenous empowerment completely collides with where those ICE dollars actually flow. The everyday Alutiiq or Inupiat shareholders, the very people this program was ostensibly designed to empower, receive dividends that are only a fraction of the massive federal revenue. But more importantly, the source material notes that these local shareholders in Alaska have repeatedly and actively objected to the moral and political cost of their corporations holding these detention contracts. Yet, as the documents show, the politicians prioritize the corporate revenue stream over the protests of their own constituents, effectively betraying the everyday Alaskans who are speaking out against it. So let's tie all of this together and walk through the exact steps of how this multi-billion-dollar shadow economy functions mechanically based on our investigation. Step 1. Alaska Native corporations stand up multiple 8A subsidiaries certified under different codes. Step 2. Federal agencies like ICE, needing rapid and opaque capacity, award them unlimited sole-source, no-bid contracts. Step 3. The actual operational work is heavily subcontracted to out-of-state entities. And finally, Step 4. Out-of-state corporate executives capture the profits, while ICE gets to expand its infrastructure quickly with total political insulation, heavily shielded by the Alaska delegation. All of this leaves us with a pretty critical question to ponder. When a program designed for Native empowerment becomes the off-ramp for privatized deportation, who's truly being served? As we've seen clearly from the source material, it certainly isn't the everyday Native shareholder. The primary beneficiaries are the federal agencies bypassing public scrutiny and the corporate networks turning political status into massive federal cash flow. It's a fascinating, deeply complex reality of how government contracting actually operates in the shadows. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the structure behind the rhetoric, and thank you so much for exploring this explainer with us today.